We are halfway through the Copa Libertadores group stage, and this is how the tables of all groups look like. Some have some defined leaders and bombs, but most are still tight and uncertain. The race will come down to the wire, which is why here in Ranked Talks Ball we're gonna predict all the matchday 4 games of the Copa Libertadores group stage 2024. Colo-Colo had a strong start against Alianza Lima, but they were stopped every time either by goalkeeper Campos, the woodwork, or even their own bad finishing. In the second half, however, the substitutes made by Almirón seemed to kill off any initiative that the Chilean team had, and the game ended in a boring 0-0 draw. Same result that Fluminense had visiting Cerro Porteño. The reigning champions showed yet another doubtful performance, with 73% possession and not a single shot on target. And with both teams being so indecisive, I think this one is gonna be a draw. Alianza Lima went to Chile to do the same thing they tried to do against Cerro Porteño, but unlike last time where they conceded in the last minute, this time Colo-Colo wasn't able to break through their defense, and so Alianza Lima got an important point on the road despite doing absolutely nothing. Now it's Cerro Porteño's turn to travel to Peru. Cerro showed once again their limited playing style against Fluminense. They are just like the Paraguay national team, they are obsessed with the 0-0 draw. If they by some miracle can score, they can win games, but if they concede, the game is completely over. And even though I have a feeling that Alianza Lima will go all out to win this game, I feel like with both teams being so ineffective in the attack, this one is leading to another draw. Cobresal played yet another horrible game. They conceded early, Pacheco missed a huge chance, and that was all we saw from the Chilean team. Because after Sosa made it 2-0 for Talleres, the game completely died, and nobody had any more serious attacks. Sao Paulo meanwhile humbled Barcelona, after Caleri scored a great goal from a header 15 minutes in. The Brazilian team dominated the game with great link-up play, and despite Barcelona having a few more shots in the second half, it was still Sao Paulo who created the better chances. One of them scored by Alisson from a corner to make it 2-0, but it could have been more. Now traveling to Chile, I don't see a way in which Cobresal can compete, so I'm gonna give the win to Sao Paulo. Talleres had a relaxed game in Chile. They scored early after a header from Mantilla. Cobresal barely fought back, and after Ramon Sosa made it 2-0, taking advantage of Cobresal's back line, the Argentinian team dominated possession and locked the game up, getting a comfortable win. Unlike Barcelona, whose game at home against Sao Paulo was anything but comfortable, the Brazilian team was dominating them at their own ground, and when they finally had chances in the second half, they missed them all. And with Alisson scoring a second for Sao Paulo, it was all over for the Ecuadorians. And things will not get better as traveling to Córdoba will be very hostile for Barcelona, and this motivated Talleres side will look to secure a spot in the next round, so I'm gonna give the win to Talleres. The strongest proposed Huachipato a very awkward game. The altitude merchants were lucky not to concede a few times, but if their finishing was just a bit better, they could have even won this game. In the end it was a 0-0 draw, but it's still an important point on the road for the Bolivian team. All this assuming they defend their home ground against Estudiantes, who had most of the possession against Gremio like I predicted, but they fumbled all their chances. Luckily, Gremio went down to 10 men in the 65th minute, which seemed to give Estudiantes a new chance to win the game. But no, because Dominguez decided to sub off a defender for a striker to try and go for the win, which left Estudiantes exposed at the back, and in a single counter, Gremio scored the definitive 1-0. And seeing how the trajectories of both teams are going, and now having to play in the altitude, I think the strongest will win this game. Huachipato, like I predicted, became overconfident after their win in Brazil, and despite being the better team against the strongest, they missed all of their chances and let go of a massive opportunity. And now they get to play in the team that they owned last time in Gremio, who I knew would resurrect in La Plata, but they went far and beyond the draw, because of Estudiantes' incompetence both offensively and defensively. And with a single goal in a counter-attack, they managed to escape Argentina with all 3 points, despite going down to 10 men. And now we have a rematch in Chile, Huachipato will try to recreate their magic, but the Gremio have woken up from their slump. So I'm gonna predict this one to be a draw. Botafogo dominated their game against Universitario, but they didn't manage to convert any of their chances. It looked like the same old story would repeat itself. But in the second half, a different Botafogo appeared. 3 shots, 3 big chances, and 3 goals. One from Enrique and a brace from Eduardo, clinical as a surgeon, leaving Universitario with no chance despite Olivares' late consolation goal for the Peruvians. Liga de Quito also played a good first half against Junior, but they were trailing because of a penalty scored by Carlos Vaca. However, before the end of the first half, Liga de Quito equalized, converting a penalty of their own. The second half was all Junior and Liga was saved by the Colombians' incompetence in front of goal. But I don't think that's gonna be the case here, because Botafogo showed that they can be a very scary team when they want to, and they are in great form right now. So yes, I know, this sounds crazy, but I'm gonna trust Botafogo to get the win on this game. Universitario was getting what they wanted against Botafogo in the first half. Despite suffering a few scares, they were creating danger through Edison Flores. However, it all fell apart in the second half, when a defensive mistake allowed Eduardo to score, and Universitario would never recover. They conceded 2 more, but at least they got a consolation goal thanks to Olivares. Junior meanwhile let go of a massive opportunity, as they were leading the game despite not doing much against direct rivals Liga de Quito, but they gave away a penalty which Liga used to tie the game. In the second half they should have won, but Vaca, Caicedo and Enamorado missed all of their chances in the counter-attack. Fuentes missed an open net and Gonzalez missed a penalty which would have given Junior all 3 points. And for me, Junior have sealed their fate by getting 2 draws at home. And now traveling to Lima, Universitario will be extremely motivated and they will give it their all in a packed stadium. So I'm gonna give the win to the Peruvian team. Millonarios was even worse than I expected. They conceded early again, and despite Castro's equalizer, Palestino punished a defensive mistake to make it 2-1. And in the second half, Palestino sat back and relaxed, giving the ball away to Millonarios, who had no idea what to do with it, and all of their chances they created they missed. Palestino made it 3-1 later on, but it could have easily been 4 or 5. Maybe they should learn something from their next opponents, Bolívar, who 2 minutes in were already winning against Flamengo thanks to a header by Chico, but only 3 minutes after that, Viña got an equalizer for the Brazilians. From that point, Bolívar dominated, but they wasted all of their chances in the first half. The trend continued in the second half, but finally in the 62nd minute, Saucedo assisted Savio for the goal that gave Bolívar a massive 2-1 win over the favorites, which sees them top of the group with a perfect score. And now Bolívar smell blood on the water, and despite playing on the road, I'm gonna give the win to the Bolivian team. Palestino took advantage of a disastrous Millonarios team. Chamorro scored early on for the Chileans, and despite Castro's great equalizer, Chamorro quickly got himself a brace. And in the second half, Bejar took advantage of a defensive mistake to make it 3-1. Sadly, now they have to play against Flamengo, who has fire in their eyes after their defeat in Bolivia. El Mengao conceded early, but Matias Viña quickly made it 1-1, but after that it was all Bolívar again, and Flamengo only lost 2-1 because of the lackluster finishing that Bolívar showed on the day. However, I trust that Flamengo will be a much more difficult opponent for Palestino, who will have to work really hard to get any kind of result. So even though I'm not fully convinced, I'm gonna give the win to Flamengo. San Lorenzo played a very poor game against Liverpool, but it looked like at least they would get a point on the road. But a defensive mistake from Xiai, who gave the ball away to Nicola in the last minute, lost San Lorenzo the game in a spectacular fashion. Even more spectacular was the defeat of Independiente del Valle, who played an outstanding first half against Palmeiras, with yet another fantastic performance from Kendry Páez, who scored a golazo early on and then put a fantastic cross for Hoyos to make it 2-0. But in the second half, Hendrik got a goal back after a mistake from goalkeeper Ramirez, and it was all downhill from there. Palmeiras grew back into the game, Lázaro equalized in the 81st minute, and in the last ball of the game, 18-year-old Luis Guilherme scored an absolute banger for a historic comeback for Palmeiras. Very disappointing for IDB, who now have to visit San Lorenzo. And even though the Argentinian team is not great, I think that at home they will have some shame, and I think this one is gonna be a draw. Liverpool suffered a bit against San Lorenzo, but they were bailed out by their goalkeeper. The game was heading to a 0-0 draw, but they found an opportunity in San Lorenzo's back line, and they took it to win the game in the dying minutes. Similar to what Palmeiras did against Independiente del Valle, who completely outplayed the Brazilians in the first half, leading the game 2-0. But El Verdao stormed back in the second half, and with their quality and experience, they turned the game around 3-2. And I respect the hustle of this Liverpool team, but unless something goes incredibly well for them, I think they should lose to Palmeiras. So I'm gonna give the win to El Verdao. Caracas. No, cut the music, because the Venezuelan team actually showed some resilience. Despite being dominated by Rosario Central in a single counter-attack, Edwin Pernia scored to give Caracas the lead. After that, they defended for dear life, but Agustin Modica scored for Rosario Central mere minutes after coming off the bench. But Caracas was able to defend the draw to finally get on the board in this Copa Libertadores. Peñarol played 60 minutes of horrible football in Brazil. They gifted the ball to Mineiro, who with their talent managed to break Peñarol's line multiple times. And after a brace from Scarpa and another from Paulinho, they were losing 3-0. Right after conceding the third, however, Peñarol revived. Oliveira scored a header from a corner, and Silveira very shortly after made it 3-2. But it wasn't enough for Peñarol, who despite their best efforts, they simply woke up a bit too late to make a difference, and ended up losing 3-2. Luckily now they have to play Caracas, and yes, I know the Venezuelan team clutched up a draw, but they really shouldn't have. And if we are being realistic, this should be an easy win for Peñarol. Rosario Central were left very frustrated after dominating Caracas for 90 minutes and only getting a draw. A defensive mistake allowed Pernia to give Caracas the lead, but after that Rosario Central pushed and it looked like at any moment they would score. And it did, thanks to Modica, who was also very close to getting the winner with a header later on. But it wasn't meant to be, and in the end Rosario Central only came from Venezuela with 1 point. And now they have to play against Mineiro, who took their chances against a Peñarol team that bunkered against them. Scarpa scored early, Paulinho took advantage of a defensive mistake, and Scarpa got himself a brace in the second half to make it 3-0. However, Mineiro relaxed, and they didn't seem to be able to contain the resurrection of Peñarol after that. Luckily for them, the Uruguayan team was only able to score 2, and so with more suffering than they would have liked, they got a win at home. Now this one should be very interesting. Rosario Central has only lost one of their last 22 games at home, and they wanna get revenge on Mineiro after their last meeting, but I don't think they have enough. This Mineiro team is simply too talented, so I think this one will be a draw. Nacional did what they had to do. In the first 20 minutes they were already beating Táchira 2-0. However, from a corner, Táchira got a goal back. But Nacional didn't really suffer, and if anything, in the second half they should have scored 3 more, but goalkeeper Camargo made sure that Táchira didn't get embarrassed again. A win is a win, but Nacional is gonna wish they had scored more, now that they have to host River Plate, who played a great first half against a poor Libertad team. River was struggling to find a breakthrough despite their dominance, until Solari scored in the 32nd minute. But shortly after, Libertad equalized from a corner out of nowhere. The game became very complicated for River, as Libertad grew more and more into it in the second half, but Libertad didn't take their chances and River was bailed out by another gem. 16-year-old Franco Mastantuono coming off the bench and scoring the winner for them. And now, even though I think Nacional are gonna put up a great fight, they never seem to get it done against these Argentinian teams, so I think this one will be a draw. Táchira showed a more decent performance against Nacional. Well, a more decent performance in the result, because at 20 minutes they were already losing 2-0. The Venezuelan team did get one back from a corner through a header from Jairari Diaz. However, Táchira never pushed for the equalizer, and they simply made sure to gracefully lose 2-1. Similar to Libertad, who were having a ghost-like performance in the first half against River Plate, somehow they were holding on until Solari scored for River in the 32nd minute. However, shortly after and out of nowhere, Espinosa connected with a header and equalized for Libertad. This seemed to give a boost to Libertad, who played very well in the second half, and when it looked like at least they would get a result, Mastantuono gave the win to the Argentinian team. Luckily, now they'll play one of the worst teams in the tournament. Libertad are on fraud watch. I'm gonna predict them to beat Táchira, but if they don't, a special rant will be dedicated to the Paraguayans, super champions. And this is how my predictions look so far. This match day I had a shake performance with 7 correct guesses and 9 incorrect, bringing the total score closer with 25 correct guesses and 23 incorrect. Hope I can get a bigger cushion this week because it's getting dicey. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like, comment your predictions down below and subscribe for more Copa Libertadores content. I'll be seeing you all next time.